Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2 has just been officially announced after being leaked for the past month, with everyone who cried that the first one fell off and is dead now back on the hype train, only to inevitably do the same thing when this one releases and doesn't sell 100 billion units. I love the internet. Now, I was not one of these people. I love the original Nick All-Star Brawl. I have like 20 hours on it on Steam and only stopped playing because I literally left the country and my computer with it. But with this second game right around the corner, I fear that the internet's short-term memory will result in them forgetting what happened with the first one and repeat those same actions again, with the unfortunate consequence being the series yet again being nothing more than a mere punchline. If you are not aware for some reason, Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl was a platform fighting game akin to the likes of Super Smash Bros. When it was announced back in 2021, everybody was ecstatic. Not only because it was yet another game featuring all our favorite Nickelodeon characters, most of our favorite Nickelodeon characters. The main intrigue here seemed to be from who was making it, not necessarily its publisher Game Mill, who honestly don't have the best track record, instead being from Ludosity, with them being well known in the fighting game community for making the small but addicting Slap City. With a group of developers who evidently cared a great deal about the platform fighter genre, it gave a lot of folks the confidence to assume that Nick All-Star Brawl would be a similar experience, just with Nick characters. And then the memes hit. Everybody was making jokes and images and posts about how good the game was going to be, until the ball continued to roll and it was eventually dubbed the Smash Killer, that it would blow that game out of the water and Sakurai will be crying himself to sleep over how epic Spongebob versus Nigel Thornberry is. And while this started out as a simple joke, it was thrown around so much that I think it built up this resentment towards the game, with Smash players getting sick of this phrase being touted so frequently and having a negative stigma towards the game as a result, which isn't all that good for marketing when the folks who enjoy Smash Brothers are very likely to be in the same demographic of who would also enjoy a game like yours. And because the game, of course, couldn't live up to the ungodly expectations a Smash competitor has, it was seen as being dead on arrival. So with the upcoming release of Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2, I wanted to take this time to discuss what I thought worked about the original, what was missing, and if I think this game will succumb to. But first, you want to know what's the real dilemma here? That you're not playing the hit mobile RPG Dislight. This video is sponsored by Dislight. Dislight takes place in this rad, stylish, futuristic universe, where huge portal-like structures have fallen onto cities of the world that grant powers from ancient gods from Greek, Chinese, Egyptian, and Japanese folklore, along with way more. With a bunch of diverse characters, you're bound to encounter a character who embodies everything you love, whether it be the fierce motorcycle-riding Odeon or creatures like Haiti. Dislight has just launched their new Endless Summer update, where for a limited time you can immerse yourself in the captivating story of Geo 2, a classic Chinese god, where you can participate in various summer-themed events to earn massive rewards. There's also this super relaxing auto-battle mode, which makes it incredibly easy to grind for prizes without even needing to check your phone. So with all that and more, why wouldn't you go to the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen to download Dislight, and use my code FIGHTWITHGODS to get 5 free draws and massive in-game rewards. Fight with gods and fight for infinite possibilities. And thanks again to Dislight for sponsoring this video. Now, the first thing you may be wondering to yourself, as I've seen many a folk across the internet asking this, but why is this getting a sequel? Wasn't the original, like, a massive failure? No. Not really. Now that we have sales figures and movie box offices readily available to us, I think it's never been easier for a consumer to think they know what's considered a success or a flop. Or, I guess, in Twitter slang, what is peak and what is a flop. Throw the word mid in there as well, perfect. Nintendo specifically have been on their A game recently when it comes to sales figures. It seems like every time they release something pertaining to their iconic franchises, we are always hearing about how it sold more copies than any other game in the series at that point. Look at Pokemon, Mario, Zelda, and most importantly here, Super Smash Bros. With Ultimate selling around 30 million copies, probably past that at this rate. Because of that, it's super simple to look at something that doesn't do anywhere near those numbers and deem it a failure, when that in and of itself fails to consider all the other factors at play. You know, it's like if 2 movies came out. For the sake of comparison, I want to use Sonic the Hedgehog and Detective Pikachu as examples. Quality aside, the Sonic movie had a box office result of $300 million worldwide, with Detective Pikachu blowing that out of the water with $430 million. Given Pikachu's box office being over $100 million greater, it would be safe to assume that it was the bigger hit profits-wise. But only one of these 2 films got a sequel. And that's because it fails to account for the budget. When you take a further look at the budget for both of these films, Sonic is at a modest 90 million, whereas Detective Pikachu is almost double that at 150 million. A common rule online is to take the production budget and double it to account for marketing costs. So if we use that, we end up with Sonic at 180 million and Pikachu at 300 million, meaning that both roughly made around $120 to $30 million profit. So you have Sonic making a similar profit, but at way less cost. And with that movie being so tiny in scope, and Pikachu being this massive story with various locations and hundreds of Pokemon on screen, it's safe to assume that a second Sonic movie which ups the stakes of the first would do better. And I think Nick All-Star Brawl 2 is in a similar boat. Not that it made similar profits to Smash, let's be real here, but if you look at the original game, it's tiny. 20 characters versus Smash's 4,000, 20 stages versus Smash's 5 million. It doesn't even have the 40-hour-long campaign. It's like going to a 5-star restaurant versus fucking Popeyes. But that's quite alright because I like Popeyes. Because of this, Nick All-Star Brawl had to sell way less copies to be deemed a success by Nickelodeon. You really think... You really think Brian Robbins is sitting there like, "Aw shucks, our game didn't sell as well as the one with Mario, Sonic, Sora, and fucking Minecraft Steve"? Of course not! He's probably ecstatic that it made them more than 35 cents in a bottle cap. It's all relative. If you were to ask someone higher up at Nickelodeon, they would probably tell you the first game was a massive success. So much so that they made DLC for it, and, oh I don't know, are making a sequel! It makes complete sense for it too. There's like 3 of those kart racing games. You really think those sell as well as Mario Kart? Nobody would be making them if that were the case, because you cannot compete. You know you can play more than one of any genre, right? Ugh, why the fuck would I play that Sonic shit when Mario Bros already came out 60 years ago? Other than kids and Nickelodeon fans, the main demographic for this series would not only be for Smash fans, but people who want to play Smash, but may not own a Switch. With it being locked off to one console, there are 3 whole other platforms out there who would kill for a game like Smash Brothers. So I don't see an issue with these games coexisting. Why does one need to kill the other? And that's not to say Nick All-Star Brawl is perfect, believe me, it is not. But with this sequel, it appears that Ludosity, yet again, are putting all the love and care they can into making this the best game it can be within their time and budget. For example, my biggest issues with the original game were... okay, aside from him, was how little content there was. I didn't mind how relatively small the roster was because it was filled with smart picks. Out of the represented franchises, the only strange decision I could think of was not including Arnold along with Helga. And then there were some obvious franchises being left out like Tak and the Power of Juju, Otis from Barnyard, hell even Fanboy and Chum Chum. Not super beloved characters or anything, I'm aware, but you can't help but think that the 2000s were severely underrepresented. It was only really Danny and Avatar, with the later additions of both Jenny and Hugh somewhat making up for that, although I guess that goes to show how popular the 2000s era is considering these are 2 of the 3 DLC characters. But even then, where's Jimmy? Hugh was solely chosen because of the memes, but it's just weird to me to not include the main character from an included franchise. Made it feel a little random in places. Now with Nick All-Star Brawl 2, they have the opportunity to include way more new characters. It won't be anything crazy, honestly I doubt the number will go much above 30, but that gives them the chance to make it feel a bit more complete. You know, as long as it's not filled out with more Spongebob, Avatar, or Ninja Turtle reps. As I said this, I remember we've already gotten another for Spongebob with a potential 5th on the way, and our 5th and 6th in Ninja Turtles. Okay, great. Who knows if everyone from the last game is going to reappear? Everyone seems to think this shouldn't be a concern, but with how vague they were about it in interviews, I'm sure at least 1 or 2 won't be coming back. But I'm really hoping this roster isn't just going to be filled out with characters from franchises already represented here. Fuck it, give me Movie Sonic. He's under Viacom just like Garfield, why not? Surprise me. Really happy to also see a variety of alternate skins for characters, with us seeing a Band Geeks and Artist Unknown alt for Squidward in the trailer. The original was so rushed it had none, and when they updated them in, they were mainly just hat. So you can really tell I heard people loud and clear when they complained about the lack of features that should be obvious in a fighting game, especially with the announcement of a roguelike story mode where Vlad from Danny Phantom is the villain, complete with boss fights and fully voiced dialogue. Reminds me of the Nicktoons Unite days. Although I hope when you beat Vlad at the very end you unlock him as another fighter. I'd be pretty shocked if he were delegated to a boss fight. Another complaint were the movesets, with a lot of animations being super unclear. Like Spongebob would clap his hands up, but that's a down attack, or they'd be so quick you can't even tell what's happening. fighting, along with having light, medium, and strong attacks. Cool on paper, but kinda overwhelming when trying to learn a new character, especially when there's not much differentiation between them other than the damage going up higher. Every character kinda felt the same in a way, like they could have been interchangeable bar a few specific moves. Also, I'm not much of a fighting game guy, but the gameplay seems to be a huge step up. Like the developers actually have the time to expand upon what worked about the original, introducing character-specific special moves and this meteor, which I don't know what it's gonna do, but I'm sure it'll do something. Stuff like this will hopefully make All-Star Brawl 2 stand apart from your average Smash clone, while not making the player think the game would be just more fun by just copying Smash Bros. So I'm particularly excited after I saw the developers saying they revamped just about every move in the game. Hope it was for the better. On top of that, they also added a bunch more flashy particles and effects to moves now, making the impact of each character feel a lot more specific, even if in an artificial way. Also, can I just say, it looks great. The original looked fine, but a little bland on the lighting side, but the shadows and lighting are vastly improved here. Not AAA or anything, but for a licensed game task of turning primarily 2D characters into 3D models while still capturing the charm, they did a pretty good job. Danny and Patrick specifically, they looked really weird in the original. Now, here's what we really want to know here. What will truly make or break this game? It's the roster. And so far, I genuinely have no idea who's going to be in, other than Jimmy and Squidward, obviously. There's a YouTuber called Papagino, who as far as I know correctly predicted Rocco as the final DLC character in the first game, who claims that the same source has showed him the full roster, or at least a wide variety of newcomers. And from reading a couple of developer interviews, it really seems like no matter what, this roster is going to be interesting. I keep hearing rumblings of strange, bizarre choices. Good or bad, we'll have to see. Personally, I really want to see Tak or Otis like I said before, but really I have no clue. The trailer does give us a couple hints at what new characters we're going to be seeing, however. There's another Avatar, Spongebob, and Lighthouse stage present, which implies more reps from those series. No Fairy World, though. Okay, no wait, let's talk about that. So the thing I've been seeing everywhere for the past 2 years is that Nickelodeon doesn't own the rights to the Fairly OddParents, and that's why Timmy can't be in the game. And I want to call bullshit? Sure, Nelvana owns the international distribution rights for the first 5 seasons of Fairly OddParents, meaning it didn't air on Nick in certain countries. But like, where the fuck have you been? Timmy Turner has been in Nick games for decades. Who knows what happened? Maybe when Nickelodeon bought the rights to season 6 through 10, it kind of tempered whatever relationship they had with Nelvana. Who knows? But what I do know is, that doesn't mean Timmy can't be in the game. It just means Nick has to actively license him out. This is all assumption, by the way. Who knows what's going on? This is just my thoughts. I heard around the grapevine that Jimmy Neutron had a similar issue. Not sure what company specifically, but if I were to guess, I'd say O Entertainment, where Nick had to go through them to use Jimmy. And while of course they'd go through that extra effort when the show was still running to promote it, after the series was cancelled and became less relevant, there was less need for them to bother when they could just, I don't know, use Lincoln Loud. However, whenever they saw all the memes and outcry for Hugh Neutron to be in the first game, they saw potential, and more specifically, profit, and going through those extra steps to put him in the game. And I think it's telling that Jimmy Neutron has just now started popping up in all these Nick game celebrations again that once excluded him, like now being in Nick Racers 3 and the upcoming All-Star Brawl 2. I think with Timmy, it might be a similar thing. The series was cancelled back in 2017 with little to no fanfare, so why would they continue using him in crossovers, especially when they have to go through Nelvana to even do so? So, if my assumption is correct, Timmy can theoretically be in the game. Nick just needs to feel like it's worth going through the extra trouble. So I'm praying that with this upcoming CGI reboot, they'll see it as being worthwhile so we can once again reunite the original Nicktoons gang. Also, now that the first game was a proven success, I'm sure Nick would be more willing to give the team more budget to try and go for these more harder to obtain characters. But hey, only time will tell. Gonna play the game no matter what. But I'm really happy so far to see that the devs are solely focusing on their own community and making it the best game they can be, instead of trying to be a Smash Bros. Competitor like all these people wanted it to be at first. All this comes back to what I said at the beginning. You can't compete with Nintendo. They invented this shit, so I'm more than glad to see them implement all these new features to try and make them stand out. The first game was crippled from its monumental expectations. Now that people aren't as willing to call it the next Smash Brothers, I'm hoping that it will allow it to stand on its own for people to realize that it can be fun in its own right, too. Either way, hashtag justice for Timmy, come on, please.